What's up, everyone? Thanks and welcome to Gamma Movie Recap. This time, I will tell you the storyline of a movie called There Are No Saints, 2022. But before we start, please support our channel by subscribing and click the bell icon for future notifications. Now, let's start. The film begins by introducing Neto Niente, a male prisoner who has been incarcerated for several years due to a grave crime. Neto is infamous for having murdered numerous individuals, which included women and children, staggering 371 times before surrendering himself to the police. On his last offense, where he killed a woman and a boy, he felt immense remorse and thus decided to confess to the authorities. Despite the reservations of several police officers who loathed Neto and disapproved of his release, he was eventually granted parole years after serving his prison sentence, thanks to the intervention of one of his male colleagues named Carl Abrahams. On the day of his release, Neto was picked up by his close friend Carl, who was willing to go to great lengths to help him since he owes Neto a great debt. During their ride to the hotel where Neto will be staying, Carl provides him with all the essentials, including a cell phone, car, passport, and a sum of $30,000 to kickstart his new life. That night, as Neto is settling into his hotel room, he hears an alarm blaring from his car, prompting him to step outside to investigate. Unfortunately, when he came out of his room, he was suddenly beaten and attacked by a group of police officers with repeated bats. Despite the attack, Neto does not retaliate or put up any resistance against the police, realizing that this was a ploy to get him back in prison. The police officers harbor a deep dislike for Neto and hold the belief that individuals with a troubled past like him are unforgivable. Following the brutal beating, Neto retreats to his hotel room to tend to the bruises on his body and face. The next day, he goes to visit his ex-wife Nadia and reunites with his son Julio, who is overjoyed to see him after years of separation. However, Julio is disappointed to learn that Neto won't be living with them as Nadia's boyfriend, Vincent, is abusive and constantly berates them. Julio reveals that Vincent doesn't hesitate to hit Nadia for trivial mistakes. Fearing for their safety, Neto rushes back to the hotel at Julio's behest before Vincent returns. Before departing, he takes some pictures of Julio and is reminded of Vincent's abusive behavior. In the evening, Neto visits a bar owned by his old acquaintance, Bailarin, a notorious gangster boss in Mexico. He inquires about Vincent's background and origins. Bailarin had revealed to Neto that Vincent was not just a property entrepreneur, but also engaged in illegal activities such as working with drug cartels for arms smuggling. The next day, Neto secretly followed Nadia and found out that Vincent's base was an abandoned factory where she went to ask for a monthly fee. Later, when Neto returned to his hotel, he found Julio waiting for him in front of the hotel room. He immediately brought Julio into the room to rest while seeing some pictures that Julio had taken. In the afternoon, Neto drove Julio back to Nadia's house before he finally went to a parking lot to eat some burgers in the car. While enjoying his dinner, however, he received a message from Nadia warning him to stay away from Julio due to the danger posed by his enemies. Neto agreed reluctantly since he could not be with Julio all the time. Later on, a group of men surrounded Neto's car while pointing guns at him. Despite feeling no fear, Neto gazed steadily at the group of thugs and put up a fierce fight when they opened fire. Although he faced multiple armed individuals simultaneously, he overpowered them with ease and even succeeded in detonating the car of one of the gang members who attempted to flee. Later that evening, Neto received a call from Julio informing him that their house was under siege. Upon hearing the news, he hurriedly drove to Nadia's house to ensure the safety of his partner and their son. Unfortunately, it was too late as Nadia was already lying lifeless on the ground, drenched in blood. Shortly after, he discovered that the culprit behind the attack was her lover, Vincent, who had planned to abduct Julio. A henchman of Vincent's pointed a gun at Neto, warning him not to resist. However, Neto swiftly subdued the assailant and seized his weapon before a shootout erupted between them. Unfortunately, by the time Neto had defeated all of Vincent's men, Vincent had already fled with Julio. As police officers arrived at the scene, they mistakenly believed that Neto was responsible for Nadia's murder, causing him to flee and become a fugitive once again. Later that night, Neto met with Carl under a flyover to request assistance in finding Vincent and rescuing Julio. As a well-connected figure within the criminal underworld, Carl suggested that Neto begin his search by locating Jet Rink, one of Vincent's business partners and an illegal arms dealer. With the help of Carl, who provided him with money and a car, Neto headed to Jet Rink's nightclub. While there, he asked Inez, a female bartender, for Jet Rink's whereabouts, and she directed him to Jet Rink's girlfriend, Kali, who agreed to take Neto to Jet Rink's residence after he paid her some money. Upon arriving at Jet Rink's home, Neto posed as one of Vincent's clients tasked with surveying all of Jet Rink's weaponry. Upon hearing Neto's false identity, Jet Rink immediately realized that he had been lied to, given that he was close friends with Vincent and knew who his actual clients were. In response, Jet Rink attempted to shoot Neto, but he swiftly fired back, shooting Jet Rink in the leg and deliberately stepping on his wound. After obtaining the location of Vincent's hideout from Jet Rink, Neto stole some of his money and departed from the house. Later on, Neto returned to the nightclub and requested Inez's help in crossing the Mexican state border by posing as his wife. While in the restroom, 3 young men attacked Neto, but he quickly overpowered them. Eventually, Inez agreed to assist Neto and acted as his wife after receiving a significant amount of money. As anticipated, they were able to cross the border checkpoint with ease due to the border police officers being distracted by Inez's appearance. After arriving at an inn, Neto allowed Inez to leave the next day since her task had been completed. However, after learning that his goal was to save his son, Inez was moved to help him further. For double the previous fee, Inez agreed to try to obtain information from Vincent by seducing him while pretending to be interested in buying an apartment. During their first meeting, she was unable to obtain much information from him, but she had another chance to gather more information at their next meeting. The following night, when Inez met Vincent at his main headquarters for a drink, he suddenly slapped her and pointed a gun at her head because he knew she was approaching him on someone else's orders. Fortunately, Neto arrived in time to rescue Inez and proceeded to kill every guard in Vincent's house before finally beating and arresting Vincent. After handcuffing and tying him to a chair, Neto brutally tortured Vincent by pouring hot water on his legs and burning his hands with embers after cutting his fingers and nails. Vincent, unable to withstand the torture, confessed to Neto that he had sold Julio to a human trafficker named Sons, who was known for kidnapping famous people. Vincent admitted that he had no choice but to do so because he had to earn a large sum of money to pay off his business debts. Upon hearing about Sons from Vincent's confession, Neto quickly reached out to Bellerin to learn about the whereabouts of Sons' human trafficking headquarters. Upon returning to the hotel, Neto warned Inez about the danger of the mission and urged her to leave. However, Inez was determined to help Neto reunite with his son. The next day, Neto and Inez went to Sons' boxing gym to gather information. However, they were ambushed and abducted by several men, with Inez's car leaving first while Neto was in another car. Despite being handcuffed, Neto managed to overpower the kidnappers and pursue Inez's car. After a long pursuit, Neto discovered the hideout where Inez was being held captive along with other victims of human trafficking. However, he was caught again by Sons' men and brought to Sons himself. Sons then revealed Julio, who was hanging upside down above a well filled with cold water. Sons reveals to Neto that he intentionally bought Julio from Vincent as part of his plan to take revenge on Neto for the past crimes he committed. Neto had killed Sons' wife and son without mercy, which motivated Sons to seek revenge. When Neto tried to rebel and fight back, Sons' men intended to kill him. However, Sons intervened and killed his own men to ensure that Neto would witness the death of his own son. After Sons' men were all dead, he forced Neto to watch as Julio drowned to death. Neto then used his remaining strength to kill Sons and free the hostages, including Julio's lifeless body. The next day, Neto discovered that Bellerin had leaked information about him and his family to Sons, including information about Vincent and Julio. Despite his experience, Neto was forced to return to his old life of violence and crime without mercy. The film's moral message is that every crime we commit will have severe consequences, which can put our families in danger and cause us to lose our loved ones. The end. If you like this video, Please like and subscribe to this channel. Don't forget to watch other videos. See you in the next video.